What I want to start with is your physical preparation for any kind of goal. But before we actually went on camera, you started telling me about the difference in your body when you were training 5 hours a day as opposed to now when you're training less. So tell us about, Kaitlin, just revisit the story about when you were training your 5 hours a day. So.
Okay. Swimming is a sport that requires 2 practices a day, or somebody came up with that idea that we needed to be in the water about 4 hours. So I had 2 hours in the morning and then in the pool, and then 2 hours in the afternoon in the pool. And then there'd be an additional hour of either in the weight room or doing cardio or doing abs or some type of activity outside the pool. So that was about 5 hours a day. And for myself, I was known as a distance swimmer. So the amount of yardage while I was training was always very high. The volume was a lot, probably about each practice range, but it was probably, I'd say, an average of 8,000 meters or workout. So
we're going to think that you're going to be a rail.
Yeah, you would think, you know, you're practicing your training 5 hours a day, you would think I'd be like a size 0. I mean, you think of how many hours and how many calories and whatnot, but it almost had the reverse effect. I mean, in high school, it's very thin. I had like no body fat. I was still shopping at Limited Too in high school. And it was probably about my junior year. I think it was my junior year I broke 100 pounds. But I also did a lot of sports growing up. So I think when you're in all different type of activities.
Well, I want to put in context your weight. You said 100 pounds. You're about, were you 5'7"?
I was 5'5" and right at like 100 pounds from my first Olympics. Yeah.
That's really thin.
Yeah, I was just skin, bones, and muscle. And then I got to college and I really put on a lot of weight. Obviously, the environment changes a lot when you get to college. The meals are different, the activities are different. And then my body was starting to finally develop. I was definitely a late bloomer. And so, yeah, I was thick, kind of heavy. Looking back at pictures, I was like, wow, I can't believe like that was me athletic. I trained at USC, University of Southern Cal, and it was known as a distance program. And you could see a very common kind of thread within the girls. We were all a little bit like on the heavier side. I mean, there's always, you know, some people that don't fit that mold, but in general, when you compared us to other teams that were known as more of like a sprint program, you would see that they were a lot thinner, more like the ideal body type that you would want as a female, and you could see the range. I mean, sprinters normally don't train as much as distance swimmers, and so the sprinters had like the awesome bodies, and the distance girls were a little bit on the thicker side, is what I noticed.
Well, that's really interesting to me because, you know, the theory is when we start gaining weight, especially as you enter mid-age and beyond, and the hormones change, and we all just accept that, you know, oh, we're going to get heavier.
Sure. But
the first line of attack for that is that we attack it externally by usually trying to amp up our workouts.
Sure.
So even you know, as a younger person, it seems like the harder and longer your workouts went, your body got thicker.
Sure.
Did you know about the sprinters' workouts? Can you compare what their workouts were like?
I have like a rough idea of what their workouts were like, but their yardage, their volume was a lot less. And they actually spent almost seemed like more time out of the pool doing more stuff like Pilates and yoga and spinning classes. And for us, it was just like pound the weights. You know, our coach wanted us to do another type of cardio because with swimming for females, once you become so efficient at something, you don't burn the calories. So a male athlete that's a swimmer burns a lot more calories than a female swimmer. I don't know the actual science behind that, but I know it's a proven fact. And for the women, when you become efficient, those calories just aren't there. So even though we're training 4 hours a day, you're so efficient in it, you're not really burning anything. And then I've also heard theories that being in cold water, it's the same like as a polar bear. You store fat when you're a female. So then you had that going against you too. You know, in the water, the temperature ranges from about 79 degrees to about 81. And so then in that process, you're storing extra fat also. So that's when, you know, our coaches were like, okay, well, you guys need to go run now. It's like, well, I just swam 4 hours. I really don't want to go run for an hour.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then when you're training that much, your body doesn't ever really get to recover either. So, you know, I was sick a lot.
You said something about overtraining too, that you think when you overtrained, that also led to you being thicker than you wanted to be. Why do you think that?
I don't know what the science is behind it, but I think when you overtrain, what makes sense to me is that you don't get the recovery time. And so your body has to have that in order to adjust, and you can't keep breaking it down. And then when you do, for me, I kept getting sick also. And so when you get sick, that's your body telling you you need to stop. It's kind of throwing out a sensor like you're doing too much. And you just kind of, and then the injuries come in, and you know.